guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm going to do my very first Top 5 Wednesday. So if you don't know, Top 5 Wednesday is a weekly post that is hosted by Sam at Thoughts on Tomes, and there is a Goodreads group that I will put a link to below where you can find topics and other people who participate. So in honor of April Fool's Day, today's topic is our favorite jokesters, pranksters, and generally funny characters from fiction. So none of mine are in any particular order except for the last one, which is going to be my sort of ultimate favorite. So we're going to start off strong with one of my absolute favorite characters from one of my absolute favorite books. So this is Mark Matney from The Martian. I really need to buy a copy of this book because I don't have one. So if you have not seen or read The Martian, it is about a crew of astronauts who go to Mars and disaster strikes. There's a huge storm and one of their crew members is struck by flying debris and they believe he's dead. They have to leave him behind. They have to evacuate the mission. Turns out that Mark Matney, our biologist, is not dead and he has to survive on Mars and try to get back into contact with Earth for someone to come back and rescue him. One of the reasons that this book works so incredibly well is because of Mark Matney himself. We really see things mostly through his perspective. He's in this horrible situation, things are terrible, it should be completely hopeless, but his kind of sense of humor keeps him going and I absolutely loved it. I loved this book so much. Next up we have one of my favorite books by one of my favorite authors, and this particular character, if you know anything about this author's universe that he writes in, you know all about this character and his world hopping. So I am talking about Hoid from Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. So if you don't know Brandon Sanderson and you don't know the Cosmere, you're probably wondering why I'm holding a book that says nothing about a Cosmere on it. So the Cosmere is this universe that almost all of his books take place in, and there are particular characters called world hoppers who kind of bounce from place to place. There's a particular character named Hoid. He goes by other names, but Hoid is what he's generally known as, and if you read Brandon Sanderson's books, almost all of them have a small appearance of Hoid in them. Whether it's Mistborn or Elantris, you see him pop up, and it's really fun to kind of track him down. Now the reason that I'm holding up The Way of Kings is because Hoid plays a much bigger role in the Stormlight Archives, of which this is the first. And I'm not going to say who he is, but he definitely takes on that kind of jokester persona, and I absolutely love him, and I love learning more about him in these books. Next up, I have a very weird but wonderful and very funny book that I really, really love, and it's sort of a bizarre love letter to one of my favorite things in the world. So this is Red Shirts by John Scalzi. So I am basically nominating the entire crew of the Intrepid, which is essentially the Enterprise, from this book because it's just such an incredibly silly, strange, and wonderful book, and these characters really bring it to life. So as I'm sure you can tell from the cover and the title of this book kind of is a parody of the original Star Trek series, which I grew up watching. So this book follows Ensign Andrew Dahl, and he has just been assigned to the flagship of the Universal Union, the United Federation of Planets, starship, the Intrepid. He begins to notice that things are not quite what they seem on the Intrepid, particularly if you are a ensign such as himself, if you are a red shirt. Everyone who's kind of at the very, very top, so the captain, the science officer, the doctor, all seem to survive on these away missions, but the red shirts do not. From there, it kind of explodes into the wild blue yonder of what the fuck. Honestly, this book is so bizarre. I can see it being really off-putting once you kind of really get into it, but I loved it. I thought it was so fun and so ridiculous, and these characters really make it work. Next up, we have a book that really took me by surprise because I did not know what I was getting myself into with this. This was kind of my first dose of Norse mythology outside of the Marvel Universe. So this is The Gospel of Loki by Joanne M. Harris. So the Gospel of Loki basically takes Norse mythology and tells it through Loki's eyes. And as we all know, he is very much the original trickster. He's the trickster god. And this book is so incredibly funny, it's ridiculous, and Norse mythology is a little bit ridiculous on its own, but this book really kind of takes the best bits of that and amplifies them. I absolutely loved getting all of this mythology through Loki's eyes. And just as a side note, if you've read Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology, this is an amazing book to pair with it. So finally, we have my #1 choice for kind of jokester characters. These two are going to be, I think, on everyone's list, so it's no surprise that Fred and George Weasley are my #1 choice. Like so many people of my age, Harry Potter was like an essential part of my childhood. And as much as I love Hermione, she is my favorite character, Fred and George Weasley were the brothers that I never had. I loved them so much. I loved seeing their antics, and I always wanted to learn more about them. I kind of wanted them to have their own spin-off series. Obviously, we all know what happens. That's not going to be a thing. I still get really upset about that. But I really, really loved them so much. I particularly loved their exit from Hogwarts. I love the fact that they opened their shop. Everything about them makes me so happy and makes me smile. So that is it for my very, very first Top 5 Wednesday. I hope you enjoyed this. So let me know in the comments below if you agree with me, if you have other characters that you really love that I missed out on this list. I would love to hear from you. So that is it for this video, and I will see you next time.